too, Jennifer.
What about? Regular meeting of Clear Lake City Council of Monday, April 6, 2020 shall come to order. Before we have the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to give all some information with regard to location here tonight. And we are certainly living with regard to the social distancing. We have here on the dais, to my right, Councilman Brandt. In front of me, we have to my left, Councilman Callanan. To my right, Councilman Smith. We have by conference phone, Councilman Ebling and Councilman Hughey. We have in the audience, City Administrator Scott Flory. We have staff members who I believe are on the conference call as well. Building Official Ritter, Public Works Director Weigel, Chief of Police Roth. I do believe we have North Iowa Corridor CEO Executive Chad Schreck, and we have V&K Engineer Jason Petersburg. To my immediate left here at the council dais, we have City Clerk Jennifer Larson. And we have our City Attorney, John Sorensen, bringing up the back of the audience. Welcome, and I trust you will all bear with us tonight under these particular conditions. Shall we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dana, seconded by Mike, that we approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. To the consent agenda, you have a copy of the minutes of March 16th, 2020. We need approval of the bills and claims, of which you also have a copy. And we have the following licenses and permits. Liquor license, Special C, Class C, Special Class C liquor license, BW Beer Wine with outdoor service and Sunday sales, Clear Lake Arts Center. Class C liquor license, LC Commercial with outdoor service, MING Restaurant. Those are renewals. Motion, please. Moved by Bennett, seconded by Mike, that we approve the consent agenda. Is there a discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Now is the time and place for anyone in the audience who wishes to address the council on any issue or concern. Please approach the podium, state your name first and last, and give your address so the clerk can properly enter it in the minutes. This is not a discussion time, nor is it a question and answer time, and you have 3 to 5 minutes. Not appearing, we'll move on to unfinished business, of which we have none. We'll go directly to new business. 6A, Citywide Alley Improvement Project. Intro, Mr. Flory. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We'll just take a look at the items here in the packet right away. First yellow sheet in your packet is a resolution setting a public hearing on plan specifications, estimate cost, form of contract, ordering bids, setting a date for receiving bids, directing the bid letting posting, as well as public notice on the city-wide alley improvement project. And I'll cover those dates here in just a moment with you. The green sheets that follow that is just a tentative project schedule, again showing some of the key milestone dates for the project. As you can see, we're at April 6th, which again, as I mentioned, is the date set for the establishing the public hearing date as well as the bid letting date. The next sheet after that, the orange sheet, is the notice to bidders that will be posted on the websites and plan rooms as well as the city's website. And then following that is the notice of public hearing, which again, the yellow sheet there, and that is the notice that's published in the paper. And last but not least is just a location map, and I would note there were 16 alleys that we talked about previously, and we have deleted one or more of those alleys. So I believe Mr. Petersburg will talk about that in his remarks, but Alley 61, we were unable to determine whether or not that alley had been vacated previously, so our recommendation on that is to not include that within the scope of the project. And then from Mr. Petersburg's presentation back at the last council meeting, we had determined there were a couple alleys that would require more extensive storm sewer improvements, so those were removed from the project scope as well. So again, just in the way of some background review, I know we've talked about this previously, but the city had authorized a professional services agreement with Veenster and Kim. That was back in June of 2019, and that was to prepare an inventory of the existing alleys and then to evaluate those alleyways for proposed improvements. The final report was then prepared and recommendations were presented to the council, and that was at one of your meetings in January of this year. And then, as I mentioned again, the project consultant reviewed the project scope with you at your last meeting here on March 16th. Also, for fiscal year 20, this is again a fiscal year 20 project, so the city had budgeted $250,000 to make certain alley improvements to certain alleys that would be selected as part of an overall comprehensive alley improvement project. Those proposed improvements were going to be limited basically to spot repairs, grading, shaping of granular alleys, and essentially a 2-inch thick hot mix asphalt overlay. As I noted previously, there were 16 segments that were identified for inclusion in the project, but again, based on topographical survey work that Joe and Jason were able to conduct on this project, they recommended 2 of those segments be removed because of anticipated storm sewer improvements that would be needed to adequately drain those alleys. So we're down to 14, and then as I mentioned here a moment ago, segment 61, we've been unable to ascertain whether or not that alleyway was vacated and is now private property, so we just are recommending to eliminate that one from the project scope as well. So the current estimate for the probable cost of construction is $223,000. The project schedule calls for the council, again, to set the date for the bid letting this evening, as well as the date for the public hearing, again, at tonight's council meeting. So the bid letting, we would recommend setting the date for April 30th at 11 o'clock here at City Hall. We would also then recommend the award of construction contract, public hearing, and approval of the contract and bonds take place at your regular meeting set for May 4th. And just again, in terms of the timeline, this project has an early start date of May 8th and anticipate completion prior to June 30th, so it's all done in this fiscal year. I don't have anything further before Mr. Petersburg just one more time goes over at a high level the proposed plans and specs and scope with you. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Council, any questions for Scott? Thank you, Scott. Review of project plans and specifications. Jason Petersburg, Veenster and Kim. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Thank you.
Like Scott said at your last council meeting, we did review the scope of this year's alley paving. At that time, we'd identified 7 different alley segments. You there?
We're there.
Okay, 7 different alley segments that we had to do a topographic survey on to decide if we were, if we could pave those without storm sewer or not. We did do that survey. We identified alley segment 58 and 59, both of those segments being south of 10th Avenue South, dead-end alley segments. They're too flat. We cannot pave those without storm sewer and make them properly drain. Then, like Scott mentioned, alley segment number 61, we have eliminated from the scope as well due to the uncertainties with the right-of-way there. The scope of the alley paving project includes grading, shaping of the existing aggregate, new concrete approaches where needed, asphalt paving. Most of the alleys will have inverted crowns. However, a few of the segments we're looking at utilizing an asphalt curb on one side to keep the water within the alley and direct it out into the street. The updated construction cost estimate's approximately $220,000 right now. We are wrapping up the final plans here the next couple of days, and at that time we will have a final engineer's opinion of probable cost available. Bid date, April 30th. All work is scheduled to be complete by June 26th. Any questions on that?
Jason, I just have one quick question. I could have possibly asked Scott, but I'll ask you now that I've got you on the phone. With number 58 and 59, what will be the goal for those in the future? Will those just be put off for forever? Or do you think at some point those will get done too?
Joe and I have looked at those a little bit. We've identified the best solution as far as storm sewer, how we would get storm sewer to those, and to be able to pave those. But I guess my understanding is that'd be a future project where the city'd be installing storm sewer and then paving those alley segments.
Council, any other questions for Jason? Thank you, Jason. Therefore, I entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2022. This is a resolution setting the date, for a public hearing, which shall be May 4th, and a bid letting, which shall be April 30th. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dana, seconded by Bennett, that we approve Resolution 2022. Is there any discussion?
I just have one quick comment. Discussed with Scott a while back the concept of road use tax money being significantly less for a period of time based on the lack of travel, lack of fuel purchase right now. And I don't have a big problem with this project per se, but I think based on maybe the bid we get, it might, if it's very high at all compared to what we budgeted, maybe it would be something we would possibly put on the burner for later. But anyway, once again, we've got a lot of other big road projects coming our way based on Main Avenue, eventually South Lakeview Drive, and so I think that's something to keep in mind.
Scott, we budgeted $250,000, I think, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Councilmember Callahan and I did talk about that, and we talked about essentially the revised estimates that we've received from the State Department of Transportation regarding road use tax funding, and Mike is completely correct that we're anticipating reduction in revenues there, so we don't know yet how long this crisis will continue, but we're anticipating probably about a 25% reduction in road use tax funds. We're probably not going to feel that yet for another month yet, since kind of the travel restrictions have been more recent. So, but we would anticipate probably for April, our road use tax receipts probably down about $25,000. So it is a significant thing.
In the estimate, we've got, what, 220, somewhere in there?
223 was Jason's estimate for construction, and he's going to revise that one final time prior to the bid letting, so it'll probably go down just a little bit more by removing that one alley segment.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Mark?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
And Bennett?
Yes.
Got got that turned around a little bit, sorry.
All right, no problem, Mayor.
My visual here. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. 6B, 4th Avenue South, South 3rd Street, and Four Winds Drive Street Improvement Project. Enter Mr. Flory.
Thank you, Mayor. The first purple sheet in your packet is the resolution adopting the plan specifications, form of contract, and estimate of cost for, as the Mayor indicated, 4th Avenue South, South 3rd Street, and also doing some patchwork out in the Four Wind Drive subdivision. The back side of that is resolution making award of contract. That award of contract would be to Heartland Asphalt, Mason City, in the amount of $218,794. Following that is also a third resolution improving the contract and bonds for the project, and that's simply to expedite this process because the contractor has indicated to us, Jason and Joe, that they are anxious to get started on this project, so that's positive. So that resolution is prepared under the assumption that the bond and contract will be reviewed by Joe and Jason and myself prior to approval and authorization given to proceed on the project. So it's a little bit ahead of things, but I think when we have the contractor who's indicating they want to get started on it, trying to accommodate that schedule as best we can. Then the white sheets that follow that are a bid tabulation and project award recommendation letter from the project consultant, Jason Petersburg, with Veenstra and Kim. So just in the way of some background on this, and then Jason's going to give his review of the bid tabulation and make a recommendation on an award of contract for the project. But at your meeting on March 2nd, the council had set the date for the project bid letting for February 26th at 11 o'clock here at City Hall in the conference room. Also established the date for the public hearing on the proposed plan specification form of contract for this evening, April 6th, 6 p.m. Notice of public hearing, of course, was published in the newspaper as required by law, and notice of the bid letting was distributed and posted as required by law. We did receive just the one bid on this project from the various contractors that took out plans for the project. The engineer's opinion of the probable cost of construction for the project was $215,998. As I mentioned a moment ago, Heartland Asphalt, Mason City, had submitted the lowest responsible bid in the amount of $218,794. So it was pretty close to Jason's estimate, just a little over 1% above what his estimate of the probable cost of construction was. Just as a way of a reminder, again, the project includes pavement removal, milling, both full depth and partial depth HMA patching. There will also be some spot curb and gutter replacement, and like all these projects, we do ADA compliant sidewalk ramps with the detectable warnings put in, as well as this project will also have an HMA interlayer course and then a 2-inch HMA resurfacing on top of that 1-inch interlayer course. So. Again, we anticipate that the notice to proceed will be issued shortly after this meeting, and this is another one that has a project completion date prior to June 30th. So we've established in contract a completion date of June 15th, but hopefully it'll be done before then. So I don't have anything further prior to the public hearing on Jason's comments. I've not received any written communication regarding the award of contract or the plans and specs, either one. So.
Council, any questions for Scott?
Just one. Pretty much all the projects we've done recently have involved sidewalk inspection of the sidewalk along the two streets. Is that done?
We're going to follow up on that a little bit more. There could be some defective sidewalk on that. I'd have to defer to Jason or Joe on that a little bit more. But if there is some defective sidewalk, we do have funds budgeted that under that program that we could incentivize the property owners on the 50-50 basis that we did on the other projects, that we could do that on this project as well. So I'd have to defer to Jason or Joe on how much defective sidewalk is out there. There may not be that much. I'm not sure.
I don't think there is a lot, but
Yep. But the program, we would
checked
make it
it
available if there is. So, yeah, good point.
Great, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you, Scott. Review of bid letting and recommendation for award of contract. Mr. Petersburg, Veenstra and Kim. Jason?
Scott pretty well covered the project scope for you there. We did mention at the last meeting that the 1-inch interlayer is being installed on 4th Avenue South and then the 2-inch asphalt surface course will be installed on top of that. The form of contract for this project is unit price, which is typical for these municipal type of projects, and the engineer's opinion of probable cost is $215,998. To answer Councilman Callinan's question, we have not completed the sidewalk inspections as of yet. It has been discussed. I do know that there are a couple of properties that do have some defective sidewalk, and it likely would be the good time to address those. Like Scott said, there was one bid received for the project. Heartland Asphalt was the lone bidder. I did talk to them a little bit about their bid, and typically in the past they've done their own concrete work, and on this project they did solicit quotes from several other concrete contractors for the driveway or alley approaches as well as the ADA work at the sidewalks. Their bid is $218,794, which is approximately 1% over the engineer's opinion of probable cost. All in all, the unit prices appeared to be pretty typical, with the exception of the turf restoration, which was on the high side. And we have had some conversations about seeing what we can do to value engineer that or try and get that unit price down more in line to where we think it should be. B&K feels it's a good project. There is a lot of value on this project for the expense, and we recommend the council award the construction contract to Heartland Asphalt in the amount of $218,794. Any questions?
Council, any questions for Jason? Thank you, Jason. Now is the time and place for the public hearing with regard to 4th Avenue South, South 3rd Street, and Four Winds Drive Street Improvement Project. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to address that particular project, please approach the podium, state your name first and last, and give your address so the clerk can properly enter it in the minutes. Not a discussion time, nor a question and answer time. None appearing, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So offered.
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Bennett, that we close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2023, a resolution approving plans, specs, form of contract, and estimate of cost. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Bennett, seconded by Mike, that we approve Resolution 2023. Is there any discussion?
Just one quick comment, Your Honor. I think this is a great project. As far as I know, in terms of heavily traveled streets in the downtown area, these are the last two to get attention. Fourth, of course, is a main artery heading down toward South Shore Drive, and third is one of the few streets, side streets that we have that directs people into the downtown area. And so, and Four Winds Drive also has some areas that we've had concerns about for a long time. So I think it's a really good project.
As the old timers used to say, it's rougher than a cob, and it's been that way for a long time. So get her done. Any other discussion? Roll call. Mike?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
And Mark?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. And now to Resolution 2024. This is a resolution making an award of contract and bonds, and this will be to Heartland in the amount of $218,794. Heartland Asphalt, Mason City, Iowa. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
By Bennett, seconded by Mike, that we approve Resolution 2024. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Dana?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Mike.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Resolution 2024 is duly adopted. Now entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2025, and this is a resolution approving the contract in bonds, once again to Heartland Asphalt Mason City. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Bennett, seconded by Dana, that we approve Resolution 2025. Is there any discussion? Bennett.
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And Dana.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Resolution 2025 is duly adopted. Move on to 6C, City Beach Enhancement Project, review of pay estimate number 2. Mr. Flory.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. The pink sheets in your packet address this item. This, of course, is the Clear Lake City Beach Enhancement Project Phase 2. Contractor on this project, of course, is Peterson Construction, Webster City, Iowa. The award date on the project was January 20th of this year. This application is for pay estimate number 2 for the period up to March 24th of this year. Pay application number 2 is in the amount of $231,800. You had, again, obviously one pay estimate that preceded this one, and that pay estimate was in the amount of $76,000. So that brings the total amount paid to date to $307,800. So again, this pay estimate number 2 is in the amount of $231,800. I'll just ask the project manager for a quick overview of the work that's been done to date on the project, as well as kind of a upcoming look ahead to what's planned for the next few weeks. And so I'll just kind of read these remarks. This pay application includes work done for the restroom building, completing the footings and foundations, foundation backfill and waterproofing, underfloor plumbing and electrical, and setting structural steel. The upcoming work includes underground aeration line piping, storm sewer piping, and structures, sand trap, and manhole excavation on the site will take place. That's currently taking place right now. The next few weeks, the restroom building should consist of completing underfloor plumbing, concrete slab on grade, and begin masonry work. Some of that's been done also. Site work for the next few weeks will consist of site utility piping and underground splash pad piping. Site mass excavation and retaining wall excavation is also planned for the coming week. So that's, in a nutshell, that summarizes pay application number 2, as well as just a look ahead to what we could probably anticipate be done for pay application number 3. Do want to also note that we had Joe and Jason and I had a get together with the contractor on the project, and we talked through some of these construction projects in light of the recent events with COVID-19 and what they're doing as a contractor to ensure that work continues on these improvement projects that we're undertaking. And so they're committed to keeping their workforce on site in Clear Lake and keeping everyone safe and healthy. They continue to be on site until further notice. Obviously something based on state leadership could be taken out of their hands, but we do not know that yet. So, and they're just, again, going to keep working on the project as long as they possibly can. So, have to go from there. Yes.
Council, any questions for Scott? Thank you, Scott. For entertain a motion to approve pay estimate number 2 with regard to City Beach Enhancement Project to Peterson Construction, Webster City, Iowa, in the amount of $231,800.
So offered.
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Dana, that we approve pay estimate number 2. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Aye.
Motion carries. Those, and related to that, those pictures that Adam Tice took are really good. I think 4 of them that we saw with the few stages in there of that construction. It's a neat project. All right, we're on 6D. Gary and Lynette Heights, first subdivision, final plat, Saragordo County. Review of proposal, recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission. Mr. Ritter, building official. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At our last P&Z meeting last Tuesday night, it was brought before us, the subdivision for the Heights, for our ordinance, they're within 2 miles of the city limits, so we're having to vote on that. at our last meeting, it was unanimous vote to approve their subdivision.
Council, any questions for Mike? Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Therefore, entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2026, a resolution approving Heights First subdivision, Saragordo County, Iowa. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Bennett, seconded by Mike, that we approve Resolution 2026. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Gary?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
And Bennett?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Resolution 2026 is duly adopted. 6E, Clear Lake, North Iowa Corridor, EDC, Small Business Recovery and Continuity Fund, Clear Lake Chamber of Commerce, Shop Local Advertising Financial Support, and the City of Clear Lake Employee Recognition Initiative. Review, Mr. Flory.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'll just run through these items in the packet here with you. The first tan sheet is a letter from the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce, Board Chairman Dan Nichols and President and CEO Stacy Dawn, just expressing their support for the city's efforts in considering what would be a $10,000 grant to the Chamber for them to administer a shop local advertising campaign promoting shopping local and supporting small Clear Lake businesses during this pandemic period. The green sheet that follows that is the resolution that would fix a date for a public hearing on a proposal to enter into a grant agreement with the Chamber of Commerce for that amount of money for that particular purpose. And then on the back side of that green sheet is a copy of the notice of the public hearing that would be published in the newspaper. Again, it sets the date for the public hearing for 6 p.m. April 20th here in the council chambers. The orange sheets that follow that is similar to the first one that sets a resolution setting the date for a public hearing on a proposal to enter into a grant agreement with the North Iowa Corridor Economic Development Corporation and provides for publication of the notice thereof. That would be the city would make a one-time economic development contribution to the EDC in the amount of $100,000 that would be used in connection with the Small Business Recovery and Continuity Fund that would be established pursuant to the terms of the agreement, and a copy of that is included in your packet. And as noted, Chad Schreck with the Economic Development Corporation is on the phone this evening and participating in the call. So he's going to just review briefly with you the purple sheet in your packet after I'm done to talk about the Small Business Recovery and Continuity Fund that he and I and my counterparts in the county and Mason City all discussed the parameters of that program to be administered through his organization. So again, that sets the date for public hearing on that for April 20th, 6 p.m. here in the council chambers. The yellow sheets that follow are similar to that. It would provide for a program to recognize City of Clear Lake employees and volunteer firefighters, et cetera, to essentially thank them for their efforts through this particular period of time, and I'll cover that here in a moment, supporting our local businesses. So the first thing, the City of Clear Lake, working through the North Iowa Corridor EDC, proposes to launch a Small Business Recovery and Continuity Fund. That would be with an initial financial allocation of $100,000 for the purposes of mitigating COVID-19 related financial losses that Clear Lake's small, independently owned businesses and restaurants had suffered here as a result of this public health emergency. Through the program and initiative, the city would be providing financial support. We would make forgivable grants up to $5,000 available to Clear Lake-based businesses, independently owned small businesses, to enable continuity through this and beyond this COVID-19 pandemic period. Program would be administered by the North Iowa Corridor EDC. There would be participation by the City of Clear Lake through appointment of city officials on that review committee. City would be directing available dollars from our Economic Development Fund. That was established many years ago. It was a repayment of state funds. There was a company here, some of you may recall, a company called Cole Sewell. So it was about 24 years ago that that company received a grant and a loan from the State Department of Economic Development at that time. The loan was repayable. Again, these are state funds. It was repayable to the city, and we were able to capture that and utilize it for future economic development purposes. We just have not used that fund previously, and we've mostly concentrated on using tax abatements and tax increment financing and infrastructure contributions, so we just haven't had a real use for those funds, but this seemed like an ideal situation where we could utilize these funds through a variety of these kinds of projects. So again, this is not any local property tax dollars utilized for this particular program, any of these components, and these are funds that can only be spent for economic development purposes. They can't be spent for other purposes, so miscellaneous type purposes. So generally under the program, the eligible business must meet certain criteria. We're looking at businesses that have been in operation a year, employ not less than one, no more than 25 employees, demonstrate at least a 25% reduction in revenues due to COVID-19. Funds can be used to cover payroll, rent, or provide working capital for the business to cover operational expenses that they may have. Again, using the same source of funds, it's proposed to allocate $10,000 to the Clear Lake Chamber of Commerce to support a local marketing effort and campaign to promote local businesses who have been adversely impacted by government closures. Obviously, one key critical example would be restaurants with dine-in operations that would be impacted by government closures. So this would be an opportunity to help, again, support the Chamber of Commerce, promoting advertising that would be marketing Shop Local, and also helping potentially underwriting marketing efforts by individual businesses who have had, again, these adverse consequences based on government closures of portions of their building. So maybe picking up a portion of their advertising. So for example, a restaurant that could no longer provide dine-in, who has been forced to advertise that they are now offering carry-out or delivery options, might be something to consider. Again, this program would be operated under the auspices of the Chamber of Commerce, but probably something that they would consider helping some of the local businesses in that way as well. Lastly, it's proposed to provide, using, again, the same source of funding for purchase of Clear Lake Chamber bucks for city employees. This would also include volunteer firefighters in response to and recognition of their, what I think to be their ongoing extraordinary efforts in the performance of their duties to ensure that our local government can continue with the continuity of services that is really critical to the constituency that we serve here. So again, Chamber Bucks program is something that supports local Clear Lake Chamber of Commerce members. I believe a little over 430 Clear Lake businesses are members of the Chamber of Commerce, so Chamber Bucks can be only spent at those businesses, so it's not something that could be spent, for example, at on Amazon.com, for example, or something like that. So I think it's a unique opportunity using this source of funds that, one, we can recognize these extraordinary efforts, I think, of our staff, our employees come in day in, day out, terrific foot soldiers, if you will. Also support our Clear Lake Chamber of Commerce and also support our local business community that indubitably have suffered as a result of this pandemic. So a way to put more money back into the economy, I think. Again, this is another one where the council would set the date for a public hearing on this for the meeting on April 20th, and again, publish notice in the newspaper as well. So I don't have anything further on that, any of those initiatives, unless anyone has any questions. As I mentioned, Chad wanted to say a few things about the small business recovery and continuity fund program that would be established and in part funded by this. You may want to mention, again, some of the partners that we've involved in this project, including both public and private. I think Bennett and I talked about this a while ago, that there's been some interest expressed privately by some businesses in wanting to step forward, and frankly, just people who feel philanthropic and want to, I know in one case, starting a program, kind of a fundraiser, if you will, to raise money to put into this program privately to help leverage these public resources that are being devoted to the program. So I know of at least a couple of businesses that are interested in contributing to a fund, so I think it's a great opportunity that you could have the public sector and private sector both working together here to leverage these dollars to help our small, local, independently owned businesses.
Council, any questions for Scott? Thank you, Scott. Mr. Schreck, CEO, North Iowa Corridor. Chad, are you there?
Yes, I am. You hear me all right?
Very good, very good. You're on.
Great. Great. Well, thank you so much, Mayor and Council. Appreciate you guys taking this under consideration, and big thanks to Mr. Flory for working through some of these details with us and helping put this together and being really proactive about it. I think obviously everyone's well aware of the impact that this is having on our businesses. We see it, we feel it, we know friends and family members that are being directly impacted by this, and obviously through no fault of their own. So as we work through this, and we've looked at what the state did. The IEDA had their grant program. We've had some other communities that have started this. Actually, Carroll, Iowa did do something very similar and had their initial applications due actually just this last week. So we have, I've had an opportunity to talk through some of the things they saw with that program that's helping us to develop this out. By way of comparison, the city there had also given $100,000 to the program, and they had over 100 applications, and I think they only had it open just over a week. So it went really quickly. They also, I believe, were going up to up to $5,000 grants. So the need and interest was obviously there. The state's program had over 5,000 applicants in just over a week of being open as well. And the maximum they could have awarded in that program due to funding was 800 businesses across the state. So obviously a significant shortfall there that won't reach all of our businesses locally that have that need, right? So our hope is for this is to be some kind of gap funding for a lot of those businesses that maybe weren't able to get those other sources, either state or federal funding, or will be waiting. We hope we can move a little bit more quickly here locally to get the funds out to those most in need. So just a few things real quick. We've also been doing outreach to businesses through phone calls and things of that nature. And again, they've just verified that need. Our surveys that we've been putting out show, I think we had over 65% of them respond that they would need some type of financial assistance. And that actually was across the range, whether it was small or large businesses. Obviously, we're directing this towards small businesses. Again, they'd have to be, for the city funding, they'd have to be located within the city of Clear Lake to receive the City of Clear Lake funds. We are also going to be meeting with the Saragordo County tomorrow. They're looking at doing $100,000 as well, and those funds will be available countywide, so could end up in Clear Lake depending on need and how many applications we get. We are going to be giving priority to companies with a longer track record. So that's one of the questions that will be part of the application. How long have you been in operation within the city or the county? We want to make sure that we're prioritizing those that have shown a long track record here. Doesn't mean, again, that people with a shorter one are ineligible or anything by any means. It's just we want to make sure that we're honoring that long-term commitment here. Also, again, like Scott said, this is going to be priority to those independent businesses under 25 employees, and as well as especially the ones that have been most negatively impacted by the disease or the pandemic, those that were most shut down earliest by those public, state, or federal requirements. We're also going to be asking of the grantees, as you can see in that purple sheet. This isn't a requirement, but it's going to be something where we're going to refer the grantees to the Papa John SBDC for financial and business training, advice. We want to make sure that these businesses are doing everything they can to plan their way through this situation and use these funds wisely. And we've got a great resource there that we want to make sure is being utilized. Again, we're not going to be babysitting or anything like that, but we think it's an important thing that'll help any business. And those guys have agreed to that as well. So really appreciate their support in this effort. And then again, we're going to be asking those businesses to do their best to use this money wisely. We're going to be making sure that as part of the application, they're explaining how it's going to be used, whether it's some of those categories Scott mentioned, like rent or utilities or payroll, whatever that might be. Trying to see what those actual figures are so we know what it's going towards. We're looking at this as short-term cash infusion to get them through the next, maybe it's 30 to 60 days. We know it's not a lot of money, but we hope it's enough to help maintain through the situation. So all these details are on our website at northiowacorridor.com/recovery fund. We're working through the final details on that application. We want to have the pre-application that validates eligibility here by Wednesday, and we're reviewing a full application with partners here that we should be able to get out by Friday. And we've kind of said we'll be reviewing those ongoing so we can try to start getting the money out as soon as possible. Obviously, the Clear Lake money won't be available until the 20th. So to put a deadline on it, we've looked at potentially saying April 24th will be the deadline to get those applications in. If we have money left over after that, we don't believe we will, but if we were to, we could certainly extend that. But that first round, we're looking to get wrapped up by April 24th just to make sure we do have a hard deadline. We get those in, and we start getting that money out there as quickly as possible. So that's kind of what we're targeting right now. And we'll keep on, we'll get all that information out here in the days ahead and get those type of things finalized. Our priority right now is making sure that we get the most help out to the most in need as soon as possible.
Council, any questions for Chad?
I was just going to add a couple items to that. When Chad and I were talking about it, I want to thank Chad for his willingness to have his organization involved in this kind of project, and I think this is one of those examples where the real value of a independent, semi-public organization like his, nonprofit organization, comes into play here. There are, again, a couple other communities that we relate and compare well with as organizations. He mentioned one, Carroll, another Storm Lake. Ironically, they both have almost identical programs. This was not any copying. Actually, Bennett and I started talking about this weeks ago, but we did not call a special meeting. They called a special meeting in these communities to act on getting their program started a little bit sooner. But ironically, they followed the almost exact same process with the same dollar amounts and the same kind of path here. The one exception I would say would be Storm Lake, where they actually have a city committee that they're having review applications. And Chad and I discussed that. I think the danger of that is, and when those things are disclosed to public governments like this, that discrete financial information of these applicants could certainly be subject to some kind of an open records request as part of that review process. So that's another beauty, if you will, of working through the North Iowa Corridor, is that a program like this can take place and not have applicants concerned that all of their very detailed personal financial, business-related financials will be subject to public revealing. So I think that's important, but it's encouraging to see that there are a lot of local programs around Iowa getting started, and a lot of programs, obviously, across country getting started here, because as Chad mentioned, the state, when you're talking 5,000 applications, and they had 800 that they could fund. And I expect our experience, we're very similar to Carroll, that I think our experience will be very, very similar to the city of Carroll, and that we'll have far more applicants than we have funds to work with at this moment. So,
I think since Councilman Smith has played an integral part in this, I'd like to ask him to say a few words with regard to it.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the involvement of everybody in this process, because, frankly, this has been a very unique crisis in the sense that the economy, it's like you're driving along in a car at 55 miles an hour and you slam on the brakes. And I think for a lot of these businesses, that's what it's been like in terms of their cash flow and liquidity. So I'd just like to thank the folks at the Chamber, and Stacy and Chad with the corridor, and Scott for structuring the approach that we've done here. And the reason I really like that is because, again, we have a history of working with public-private partnerships, for example, on the nonprofit side, and working closely with the Chamber and the corridor. And as Scott mentioned, I think the source of funds is really crucial here. We have the City Economic Development Fund, and so I think it's just a very important way for us as a local entity, as local government, to inject funds into the local economy. And as Scott said, through the appropriate organizations who know how to do this, rather than us getting involved with that directly. I think that's really crucial. And I think it is important we'd all agree to support our local businesses. I've been dining out as much as I can, and I know they're hurting for cash flow and everything like that. So again, let me thank the Chamber and Chad with the corridor and Scott in structuring this. And again, as he said, our frontline employees who are going to work every day, putting themselves at risk, I think it's a great way of rewarding them with Chamber bucks, and then, you know, having them inject money into our economy with the Chamber members. I think that was a terrific idea, Scott, to do that. So I want to fully support all of these programs, and hopefully this crisis will abate as we go forward. But I think, again, it speaks to the prudence of the management of our budget, that we have some liquidity, we have some ability to help here, and I think it's just very important that we do it. And again, I think Scott has structured it very well for how we do it, for accountability purposes and things like that, Mayor. So thank you.
Anyone else, Council? Thank you. And Scott, Chad, Bennett, all others, you know, this has been a united effort on your guys' part, and a lot of work has gone into this. But when have we ever been in such a unique, shall we say, tumultuous time as we're in right now? I can't recount it. Little guy growing up in World War II, I don't remember a thing about it, but I do remember talk about it, and that's it, the talk about it. We're living this, and truly, truly a unique time in our history. And, you know, the united part of this is the cool part, I think. You know, I've often said many times, the process is the product. The process of putting this together was truly unique as well, for the good of our small businesses. They are the backbone of our communities. And here we had government entities and community entities working together to help out our small businesses within these communities. And well done. Thanks. Okay, we have 3 resolutions here, gentlemen. First, we have a motion to approve Resolution 2027, a resolution fixing a date for a public hearing on the proposal to enter into a grant agreement with the Clear Lake Area Chamber of Commerce, shop local advertising. Motion, please.
So offered.
Second.
Moved by Mark, seconded by Bennett, that we approve Resolution 2027. Is there any discussion? Okay, roll call. Mark?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
And Gary?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. And now to the second resolution, Resolution 2028, a resolution fixing the date for a public hearing on the proposal to enter into grant agreement with the North Iowa Corridor Economic Development Corporation, Small Business Recovery and Continuity Fund. That also is on April 20th. I failed to mention that in the first one. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dana, seconded by Bennett, that we approve Resolution 2028. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Mike?
Yes.
Dana? Bennett? Gary?
Yes.
And Mark?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Resolution 2028 is duly adopted. And the third, Resolution 2029, a resolution fixing the date, which again is April 20th, for a public hearing on the proposed use of funds under Iowa Code Chapter 15A for an economic development project with the Clear Lake Chamber of Commerce, Chamber Bucks. Motion, please.
So offered.
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Dana, that we approve Resolution 2029. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Dana?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Mike.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0, and Resolution 2029 is duly adopted. Well done. Well done. 7, Chief Roth, are you there?
I am.
Well, I know we have your report. Do you have anything else, sir?
Just want to welcome you back to town, and wanted to let the council know that our new police officer started today, Jonathan Rogers. He'll be on evening shift doing some field training, and we also extended a job offer to Erin Froning to be our new communications supervisor, and she will start around April 22nd. And then just a final reminder, we start our siren test tomorrow at 10 a.m. So that's all I have unless you have any questions.
Council, any questions for Chief Roth? Thanks, Chief. You guys are working through a tough time as well, and we truly do appreciate the Clear Lake Police Department. Thank you. Under Mayor's report, first of all, Chad, do you have anything else?
I guess, for us, it's been on COVID all the time. We're working with our businesses, making calls every day to them, to the major employers, to see how things are going. Fortunately, most of the major employers have been able to proceed. We take proper precautions to protect their employees. A lot of the office type ones have their employees all working from home. We've only seen so far 2 that have told us about layoffs or potential layoffs of any scale. So we've been fortunate that way, but obviously we do know from a lot of small businesses that they have told their employees to stay home for the time being. We're working with several partners, with all of the economic and community development partners, to try to coordinate our messaging and our outreach to the business community. We're doing that effectively and not overwhelming them. We're also, the corridor is serving on the Joint Information Center with the Emergency Operations Center, which is going to be well to do more coordinated messaging across public health and all the other entities, because so much is coming out so fast, and we want to make sure that that's coordinated more effectively across everybody. A lot of coordination around those things, and obviously this week we'll be ramping up all the grant activities. So appreciate your guys' support.
Thank you, Chad. Appreciate it. Still under Mayor's report here, just a note, and I think Mr. Weigel put this out a while back, but I believe, Mr. Weigel, DOT is to start back up on Highway 122/18 on April 13th, Wicks Construction. Is that correct?
Yeah, with the pavement widening that they got to finish yet, they're going to resume weather pending. And then the subcontractor doing the signal work has been out there the last 2 or 3 weeks doing some miscellaneous conduit work, pulling some wire and set the cabinet controllers and stuff for the signals. Still working with the DOT, I guess, on how to get those new traffic signal poles constructed with the high water table. I guess they're still talking about what they're going to do on that, and so I don't have any better updates than that on that right now.
Okay. Council, any questions for Mr. Weigel? You have anything else, Joe? I got you ahead of me here.
No, that was,
Okay,
nope, that was the one thing I was going to report on.
okay, thank you. All right, I've got a couple of things that I want to go over, and I think that they're very critical for the time that we're in. But as you heard tonight, we as a city are working together with our Chamber of Commerce and the North Iowa Corridor and others to help our retail businesses who are hurting financially as we all struggle through this pandemic. I think that has been first, maybe and foremost in our minds for the last several weeks now, and believe me, it will be for the next several, I believe. And this next week, or the week that we are in, may be the toughest. We shall see. With regard to that, while I was out of town, I had a lady who grew up in this town and lived in this town all her life. I'm going to mention her name, Mrs. Jan Malinsky, who texted me once again while I was out of town with regard to showing our united spirit. And doing that, each and every one of our households can be a part. And that's showing the American flag. Oh, glory, if you wish. This town is good at that. We do it a lot through our celebrations, primarily in the summer. Old Glory glorifies our Main Street most every day. And she was talking about, why don't we do it right now? This is really tough. By putting that flag out, up, in the ground, it shows a community togetherness effort in fighting this war that we are in. Now, this war is not against another human being or human beings or nation. It's again against a microscopic organism that we have given kind of several names, COVID-19 if you wish. But by showing the American flag, it shows our truly united efforts to fight this organism off and out of here. Keep in mind, we are the United States of America, and we say that in our pledge. We all, in her words, should exhibit the U.S. flag as it shows support and tribute to all first-line responders, some of whom are working long, long days, some with limited supplies and medical equipment, just to protect us from this potentially deadly virus. If you look at our own Clear Lake Police Department, Clear Lake Fire Department, and paramedics, when a call comes out, they are the first to arrive on the scene, not knowing what they might find. I talked earlier this evening. Scott's youngest daughter, Flory, and my youngest daughter are both in the health career profession. I believe Cassidy works with the elderly. Katie works in labor delivery in a hospital in the northwest suburb of Chicago. And there have been some interesting responses from her over the last several days. They are the warriors. They are out in front. Now, you don't have to go out and, if you don't have a flag, and purchase a flag. We're all sequestered in our homes 24 hours a day, it seems at times. And all ages can work together, perhaps in their creative talents, and design their own personal flag or flags that represent our great country. Be it made from cloth, from paper, from wood, maybe it's sidewalk chalk art. From children to those of us who are just a little more mature. We certainly have the time. Display that flag in your windows, on your doors, in your yards, perhaps along the sidewalks. Show the world that this town really, really cares and works together. I know we go around, I've had a bunch of them go through my neighborhood looking for the teddy bear in the window. Some are looking for lions. Some are driving around the lake as they congregate first at the surf parking lot and drive around the lake. I'm very concerned about our young people that graduate this year. What's going to happen? What will they have? How will they celebrate that graduation? It's tough. In the end, we will be victorious, and that United States flag, as Mrs. Malinsky said to me, will be the representative of all of our work. We will prevail. Now, one thing I heard today from the governor, among other things that will be closed, are our wonderful parks. Now that really hits me hard because some 30 years ago, I spent 9 years on our park, and it was mostly Parks then, and Recreation Board. And since that time, a lot of time and effort have gone into our parks for the good of this community and our tourists. But it's necessary, folks. It's necessary if we are to beat this coronavirus and wipe him out of here. And this is what she said. We have to remove benches, tables, lock the restrooms, make the playground unusable. I think we have a couple of areas where we have basketball, bankboard, rim. That has to be shut down. This is sad, but it's necessary. These times require city governments to think and to act with an abundance of caution in best interest of the health, welfare, and safety of our citizens. You know, while some of you may think that these actions are an overreach, I believe that 6 months down the road from now, we'd, city government, by doing this, would rather be remembered having done maybe too much than rather having done too little. We're in a tough time, folks, a very tough time. We all know about social distancing. We've all got these germ cleansers. I think we take them to bed with us anymore. There are the alcohol wipes. There are washing your hands twice to the tune of happy birthday. I don't mean to belittle all that. It's necessary. We must do that. wiping down the car, wiping down the steering wheel, wiping down this, wiping down that. We don't know where Mr. Coronavirus is. He's everywhere. Everywhere. It's worldwide. It's in this country. So before you leave home, as Grandpa used to say, son, think. End quote. God bless Clear Lake and this country. Thank you, Mrs. Malinsky. Great idea. Mr. Flory.
That's a hard act to follow there. Powerful words, Mayor. Thank you. I was just going to mention, I passed out, had the clerk pass out for you, that, again, this is our first council meeting since the governor's declaration of the public health emergency situation. So put together some rule adjustments here, if you will, for our in-person meetings here going forward. And with your indulgence, I'll just go through some of the changes here and then just ask for general concurrence so that we could post these going forward. Again, this will be effective tomorrow. In-person meeting adjustments due to the COVID-19 public health emergency declaration. Notice follows the declaration of state of emergency by Governor Kim Reynolds and other guidance issued by the Iowa Public Information Board, as well as the Center for Disease Control, stemming from COVID-19 pandemic, fully acknowledging the importance of the action taken by the governor and further recognizing it's prudent to follow the best practices recommended by the CDC. We do also still have to be cognizant of the fact that the business of the local government still must continue. So this policy adjustment is built with that balance in mind. So, thus, for the remainder of the declared emergency, the City of Clear Lake would adhere to the following adjustments. This would be for our in-person city council meetings and likewise for other meetings as well, probably Board of Adjustment, Planning and Zoning Commission, Park and Rec Advisory Board, Library Board, et cetera, but just talking about city council here for this evening. First bullet point here, the regular meeting schedule, which of course is the first and third Mondays of each month at 6 p.m., would remain in place. There are some communities that have adjusted their schedule. Instead of having semi-monthly meetings, they're going to just one meeting per month, but I think we can still continue to meet twice a month. Number two, the meeting agendas will be confined to items which, in determination of the city administrator, be essential or necessary for the current operations and services that we need to provide. Third, all staff members and those reporting for outside agencies or organizations would be excused from in-person meeting attendance, but may be requested to provide reports telephonically during the meetings, which we obviously have this evening. I'd anticipate that going forward for the foreseeable future. So organizations like the Corridor and the Chamber of Commerce, again, other organizations, nonprofit organizations like Central Gardens or the Arts Center, likewise. So. Number four, city council meetings shall remain open to public attendance. However, each attendee would be expected to comply with current generally accepted best practices issued by the CDC. Those include, of course, as the mayor mentioned a moment ago, the social distancing practices of approximately 6 feet of separation. Try to refrain, of course, from handshaking or other direct contact. Also, coughing or sneezing into one's elbow should be the practice. And likewise, as Mayor mentioned again, hygiene practices like the hand washing we encourage, obviously, before the meetings for in-person meeting attendance. So, number five, because in-person attendance would be limited as the governor is strictly enforcing here now, the no more than 10 persons, that would obviously limit us for our in-person meetings, so it's vital for us to be able to have our staff and elected officials here, and deference has to be given, obviously, there. Public hearing comments related to agenda items, so we'll put this out on social media, on our website, and in the papers, and ask for the radio station to advertise as well. But we still want to invite public comments by citizens regarding agenda items, so we encourage those to be emailed, of course, to the city clerk for distribution to council members prior to the start of the council meeting. during public hearings, when we have public hearings, council would be allowed to make in-person comments in the council chambers, one person at a time only, subject to, again, the in-person restrictions of no more than 10 persons being present in the council chambers at any given time. Number 6, council meetings are open to the public by way of now the inaugural first live stream, as the mayor mentioned earlier this evening, again on www.cityofclearlake.com or via the city's Facebook page. Additionally, consistent with the city's general policy during this health crisis, the public is precluded access from the city administration offices for purposes of attending the meetings. However, we will provide access to the public not sooner than 10 minutes prior to the start of the meeting. 7, in-person attendance at council meetings shall be on a need basis with priority given to the mayor, mayor pro tem, 2 city council members, the clerk, attorney, and administrator, so exactly as we have laid out here this evening. 2 city council members would participate electronically in order to, again, maximize the opportunities for in-person attendance by members of the public if that becomes an issue. So, and last but not least, the portions of the meeting ordinarily set aside for public or citizen forum would be temporarily suspended to expedite the meetings, as well as ensure that we are compliant with the regulations of not to exceed 10 person present here. So. And again, that is it. Unless anyone has any questions on those, we'd like to promote those and distribute that electronically on our website, social media, et cetera.
Council, any questions for Scott? Interesting that we have to do this. Critical, but we have to do it.
I think it was a Chinese curse that said, "May we live in interesting times," and we certainly are.
Not funny, but anyway, yeah. Thank you. Any questions, council? Okay. All right. Everybody, be safe. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor.